Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing with our ChiBi Let's Talk Lore series. We ended last episode as Zhou Yu's vanguard unit of Jiang Qin, Xu Sheng, and Ding Feng were soundly defeated by Cao Ren as he held his ground defending NanJun. This early setback infuriated Zhou Yu as he felt his assault on NanJun was reflective of his abilities as he was still absorbed with his battle of wits with Zhuge Liang. So his first instinct was to march his main force himself onto NanJun and siege down the city himself. But just as he suggested this plan, Gan Ning stepped forth and warned Zhou Yu that if he takes the entire army and encircles NanJun in a prolonged siege, then Cao Hong will surely ride out and come relieve NanJun. This would be terrible for them, as they would be sandwiched between two forces, while weakened from being spread out in a full siege. So a better plan is to have him lead a 3,000 strike force to first take out the weaker Cao Hong, as that commandery does not have high walls, so taking it should not be an issue. Then they can turn their eyes together on a more isolated Cao Ren and take NanJun with a full siege. Zhou Yu agrees and let Gan Ning go. Unfortunately, his departure was spotted by Cao Ren's scouts. Cao Ren and his strategist Chen Jiao then ordered Cao Chun and Niu Jin to ride off in response to reinforce Cao Hong, while also sending out a fast messenger to warn Cao Hong ahead of time. So when Gan Ning arrives, Cao Hong was prepared as he led his entire army to fight Gan Ning. But after 20 exchanges in a duel, Cao Hong pulled back and retreated with his army. Not interested in giving chase, Gan Ning took the now undefended commandery, but immediately Cao Hong's retreating army turned around to fight. Alongside him were now Niu Jin and Cao Chun, who had been laying in waiting, and now they have encircled Gan Ning within the small town and essentially put him under siege. Gan Ning tried his best to set up a defense as he sent out riders to report back to Zhou Yu asking for help. Upon receiving the news that Gan Ning is now surrounded, Zhou Yu left Ling Tong in charge of the camp and rode off with the main force himself to rescue Gan Ning. On their way there, Lu Meng suggested cutting down all the trees along a small path connecting between Gan Ning's location and NanJun, so that once they have saved Gan Ning, Cao Hong's forces would have to retreat back to NanJun on this route, and the debris from all the fallen trees would hinder their famous tiger and leopard cavalry to dismount and force them to travel back on foot, so that they can capture the horses themselves. Zhou Yu agrees as they committed a crime against global warming, and after wasting some time to cut down trees, Zhou Yu finally arrives at the battlefield where conditions were getting grim for Gan Ning. But luckily, Zhou Yu sends out Zhou Tai, who was well known for his reckless bravery, as he charged into the siege with a small group of men to inform Gan Ning that help has arrived and the time for a counterattack is now. Then the two forces coordinated a final assault on Cao Hong's men, as they had gone from the one who were doing the surrounding to now the ones who are now surrounded between the two forces. Soon it was clear that Cao Hong's small force was no match, so they took the small path to regroup with Cao Ren, but found the path littered now with fallen trees, so they had to abandon their horses like Lu Meng had predicted. Zhou Yu orders his force to give chase, but they soon ran into Cao Ren's force who had come to rescue Cao Hong, and the two sides fought in a chaotic skirmish that resulted in a standstill as Cao Ren and Cao Hong pulled back into the safety of NanJun. But now the situation was much worse as they stood isolated against Zhou Yu's main forces, who had started preparing for a full siege. Cao Hong quickly suggested to Cao Ren to open up Cao Cao's sealed letter, as now it was a dire time that it was meant for. Cao Ren opened up the letter and read it and made plans accordingly. The next morning at 5 a.m., Cao Ren orders all his army to pack up, eat breakfast, and evacuate the city from all three gates not facing Zhou Yu's camp. At the same time, he ordered banners to be placed all along the city wall facing Zhou Yu to give the appearance of a heavily manned wall. Zhou Yu, thinking that Cao Ren is giving up the city and escaping, quickly rallies his camp to give chase. As Cao Ren's forces were lacking horses, they were quickly caught up, so Cao Hong had to hold up the rear as he challenged Zhou Yu's side to a duel. Zhou Yu sends out Han Dang, and after 30 exchanges, Cao Hong ran away from the duel, and Cao Ren replaced him. On Zhou Yu's side, Zhou Tai came out to relieve Han Dang, and after just 10 exchanges, Cao Ren also retreated, leading to a rout of his force. But Zhou Yu was now not so interested in chasing them far, as he turned his eye on a seemingly empty commandery in NanJun, as it was the prize that he coveted the whole time. He orders Zhou Tai to continue to give chase with a small detachment, as he turned his force to march into NanJun to claim it for Wu. Little does he know, the banners littering the wall were not just decoration, as Chen Jiao and hundreds of crossbowmen now hid on the wall awaiting for Zhou Yu to step into the city. Unsuspecting of any traps, Zhou Yu's army walked into the wide open gates of the city, and immediately the ground beneath them gave away, as it has been booby-trapped into a giant pit as men and horses fell in. Next, a shower of crossbow bolt rained down into the pit. Guards tried their best to protect Zhou Yu, but a shot eventually found Zhou Yu in his left rib cage. To make matters worse, NanJun and whatever little cavalry Cao Ren had remaining were hiding in the city center, and now they were charging at the gate, hunting for a wounded Zhou Yu. Zhou Yu's men tried their best to drag him out of the pit, as Xu Sheng and Ding Feng fought bravely to rescue Zhou Yu, but losing their commander put the Wu forces in a state of confusion, as they went from winning to losing in an instant. Cao Ren and Cao Hong's forces also turned around, as they turned from a false retreat into a real counterattack. If it hadn't been for Ling Tong leading a force from camp to arrive on the scene just in time to hold back Cao Ren's forces, Zhou Yu's forces would have been wiped out. At the end of the day, a battered and demoralized Wu forces returned to their camp, as Cao Ren successfully retaken the city, and the balance of power now had fully shifted. Medics quickly removed the arrowhead from inside Zhou Yu and treated his wounds, but they soon realized the arrow had been poisoned. They tried their best to contain the poison, but they warned Zhou Yu to remain rested and not aggravate the wound or become angry, as sudden mood changes will probably make the poison effect worse. So Chen Pu, who is now thrown into the commanding position, shifted their offensive tactic into a defensive one, as they remained encamped for the next 3 days, despite constant challenges from Liu Jin and Cao Ren asking for duels outside of camp. Now, Cao Ren knew the arrow was poisoned, so every day he had people go outside of Wu's camp to taunt and challenge them to fight, and hurl troll statements and curse words at Wu camp, as he wanted to infuriate Zhou Yu. After a few days, Zhou Yu tells Chen Pu, "We can't just take this. We have to ride out and face them." Chen Pu tries to calm Zhou Yu down, but Zhou Yu insists to put on his armor and ride out together to face Cao Ren. So a wounded Zhou Yu rode out to face Cao Ren, who in turn ordered his whole army to hurl insults at him. A raging Zhou Yu ordered Pan Zhang to attack, but his barely healed wound reopened due to his rage and from the horseback riding, as he fell off his horse. Chen Pu quickly ordered his men to retreat and recover Zhou Yu from the battlefield, as Cao Ren's forces took the opportunity to charge. Back at camp after another defeat, Chen Pu checks in on Zhou Yu, who tells him to use this opportunity to their advantage. Zhou Yu tells Chen Pu to inform the entire camp that he has died from his wounds, and pick out a few soldiers who were captured from Cao Cao's troop in the Battle of ChiBi, and have them run off to Cao Ren with this news. Then Cao Ren will surely come raid their camp tonight for his body, and they can defeat them with an ambush and finally take NanJun. Chen Pu proceeds with the plan, and sure enough, Cao Ren takes the bait, as he orders Cao Hong and Liu Jin to come with him on a raid with almost the entire army. He only left strategist Chen Jiao with a few injured troops to guard the city. Once Cao Ren stepped into Zhou Yu's camp, he knew right away it was a trap, as it was eerily quiet. But it was already too late, as Han Dang and Jiang Qin charged out from the east, Zhou Tai and Pan Zhang charged out from the west. To the south was Xu Sheng and Ding Feng, and to the north was Chen Wu and Lu Meng. Even their retreat route back to NanJun was cut off by Gan Ning and Ling Tong, as their army was decimated. Cao Ren and Cao Hong were lucky to break free with less than 20 men, as they now turned north towards Xiangyang, as they tried to regroup with the nearest armed forces under Xiahou Dun. Now victorious after a night of heavy fighting, Zhou Yu finally rides up to NanJun to take his prize. Greeting him was not an open gate and a surrender from Chen Jiao, but a hail of arrows and the smiling face of Zhao Yun, as Zhuge Liang had been observing the fight from afar for weeks, as he ordered Zhao Yun to launch a sneak attack into NanJun as soon as Cao Ren has left to raid Zhou Yu. Unsure of how many Liu Bei's men were there, Zhou Yu retreated back to camp, and instead ordered Gan Ning and Ling Tong to just ignore NanJun, and quickly chase north to recover Jinzhou and Xiangyang, as Xiahou Dun didn't have many men under his command. Zhou Yu planned to stall Zhuge Liang here in NanJun himself, while he can isolate them in the Jin province once Gan Ning and Ling Tong take their respective commanderies. But soon reports filter back that Zhang Fei has taken Jinzhou and Guan Yu has taken Xiangyang. Zhou Yu, clearly angry, asks how did they take it, and the report says after taking NanJun, Zhuge Liang was able to capture Chen Jiao, who had Cao Ren's official seal in his possession. So Zhuge Liang ordered Zhang Fei and Guan Yu's men to disguise themselves and use the seal to order the garrisons at Jinzhou and Xiangyang to come to aid Cao Ren. Then they just walked into these cities and took them without losing a single man. So after weeks of heavy fighting and heavy losses, Zhou Yu has nothing to show for it, and the entire Jin province now belonged to Liu Bei. This was the final straw that infuriated Zhou Yu as rage and jealousy built up inside him, boiling his blood and spreading the poison. Zhou Yu let out a big cry as his still unhealed wound burst open once again, and he fell to the ground, blacking out. To find out if Zhou Yu can survive his wound and retake NanJun out of Zhuge Liang's hand, come back tomorrow as we continue our lore series.